The first time I saw Peter Greene was in The Mask. At my age, I couldn't tell you what drew me to him, especially next to someone like Jim Carrey, who was rubber-faced with boyish floppy hair and infectious energy. He was designed in every way to appeal to 8-year-old me, and he did appeal to me. I was a huge Jim Carrey fan growing up. I gave him his own section in my VHS collection, even though I only remember owning 3 of his films. I played hooky the whole day from school for his first interview with Oprah because the bus didn't drop me off in time to catch it from the beginning. But it was Peter, the antithesis of Carrey in the film and in real life, that influenced so many of the repeated viewings of The Mask that made the catchphrases from that film a part of my adolescent vernacular. So actually in the script that I have here, I have a specific catchphrase from The Mask, and it is "somebody stop me," but I tried to say it in a run through of this and it sounds awful. Okay, I'll do it. Somebody stop me. I'm so sorry. Peter was around 29 in that film, and already he had a troubled air to his performances. It was something you could sense even as he played a PG-13 scumbag in a cartoonish mask. There are pictures of Peter from this era exclusively in roomy dark wash jeans, a plain t-shirt, and a black leather coat, the uniform of a good Irish Catholic boy, a la the Boondock Saints. He was svelte, though perpetually tanless and gaunt. His high cheekbones made his eyes deep set, casting a permanent shadow over them, but they were sharp and magnetic, and once you saw them, they never loosened their grip on you. Despite the well-documented demons he was battling at the time, he was pretty goddamn beautiful. The Mask offered Peter a rare chance to play around and be ridiculous on film. But a few years later, I came across Clean Shaven, an indie drama that was one of his first starring roles. It was the film that solidified Peter as a total powerhouse for me and made him a household name in at least my household. I'm definitely going to talk about that film for an episode of this podcast, so I won't go into detail about it here, but I often wish that role had been his breakout. I think he would have had a lot more pure dramas under his belt, and we'd be all the better for it. As a teenager, I Google searched his name quite often, and I found fan sites with great pictures to gawk at, but not much else about him. As the years went, my routine became to search for his name on IMDb periodically to make sure new projects were populating under it. It made me really happy when I knew he was getting work. In my 20s, my check-ins with his career got fewer and fewer. I went to college, got a career in a field I absolutely didn't go to college for, and picked up some new fandoms. I hadn't followed Peter's career very closely for years, and then the universe spit him into a dream of mine recently. It felt like seeing an old friend at just the right time. I took it as a sign, and I started putting together this podcast a few days later. In the real world, my desire to do this couldn't have come at a worse time. I am tits deep into the first draft of my second novel, and I'm trying to regain some semblance of a social life. This effectively puts both of those things on back burners. That dream was probably just a dream, not a calling, not a sign. Peter Greene doesn't even need this podcast. In the nicest way possible, he probably doesn't give a shit that I'm making it, and that's fine. He doesn't have an ego that needs this kind of stuff to exist about him, but apparently I do. I've fully accepted that I am on some weird, self-imposed mission to make people appreciate Peter's talent the way that I do. Maybe by the end of this podcast, I'll figure out why it felt so important to do this. I was sure with the invention of YouTube that I'd find lots of new content with him, but there's still not much out there. He doesn't really do interviews, or he doesn't accept requests to do them. And as far as social media goes, he may or may not have had a Twitter account once upon a time. I couldn't verify if the one I came across was legitimate. Today, Peter is in his 50s. From the few recent interviews I've seen with him, he's seemingly stayed the same in all the ways that matter. He's still New York's proudest resident that can disarm you with a side smirk and stop you dead with an unnerving crystal blue gaze. And you know what? He's still pretty goddamn beautiful. He has also continued to steadily work. His IMDb page is filled with big productions and small ones, TV show guest spots, and starring roles in films. In addition to being every variety of small-time thug and drug kingpin possible, he's also gotten to play detectives, writers, and even a zombie apocalypse scientist. Though he pops up most frequently in thrillers and action, the spectrum of his versatility as an actor is incredible, and I don't think enough people realize that. My name is Amanda Mack, and in this limited run series, I'll be discussing some of my favorite roles of Peter's with a few of my cinephile friends. I'm calling it $1 Million Day Player. It is based on a nickname he got from Christopher McQuarrie for accidentally flicking a lit cigarette into Stephen Baldwin's face in The Usual Suspects. I want to focus on breaking down the impact of his performances in roles both large and small, but more than anything, I want to encourage people to seek out films of Peter's they haven't seen before and go back and absorb his performances in the ones they have seen. This podcast will start soon, so to make sure you get new episodes, subscribe to this feed on iTunes on Apple devices and Podcast Addict on Android devices, or Spotify on all devices. I was trying to think of a really good line to end this all on, something that sort of summed everything up and made everything feel really great, and I couldn't think of anything, so I just decided to take this opportunity to say hi. I'm a real person. I know this episode 0 sounds a little robotic, but I am a real person. I'm a real fan of Peter's, and also this podcast will depend entirely on people sharing it by word of mouth and on social media and whatnot. So if you like the podcast, please share it with your friends, share it with other Peter Greene fans you know, and review it and all that good stuff on the platforms that it appears on. So I can't wait to get the podcast out to you guys. It's gonna be really cool, and I'm really excited I get to do this. So thanks everyone, and I can't wait for you to hear it.